If you ever bet on football, then this video is important to watch. I'm going to break down 5 common football betting myths that are quietly bankrupting you in the long term. Almost everyone falls for these myths in the start, and I am willing to bet that you might still believe in at least one of these. So let's start with the first myth and see if I am right. The first myth is that if the bet won, it must have been a good bet. This is one of the most dangerous ways to think about betting, and it's something I used to fall into constantly when I first started out. I'd land a few bets, especially in accumulators or short odds selections, and assume I'd figured something out. When in reality, I was just getting the outcome, not making the right decision. Because here's the truth, the outcome of a single bet tells you nothing about whether it was a good decision. A bad bet can win, a good bet can lose. What actually matters is whether the price you took was better than the true probability of that outcome happening. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say a team is priced at 1.50, which implies around a 66% chance of winning. But based on the data, their actual chance of winning is closer to 55%. Now imagine you place that bet, and it wins. Most bettors will think, great call, that was a good bet. But it wasn't. You were underpaid for the risk you took, and if you keep placing that same type of bet over and over again, you will lose money long term. That's the key idea here. You can win the bet and still lose overall. And this is where most people get stuck, because winning reinforces bad habits. They don't realize they're making poor decisions until the results start going against them, and by then, a lot of damage is already done. Now the next myth is really important, and it catches a lot of bettors out. That's the idea that you can't win at short odds long term. You'll hear this all the time. People saying things like, you can't make money backing 1.20 shots, or short odds are a trap. But this isn't actually true. You can win at any odds range if you're consistently getting value, because odds are just a price. They don't tell you whether something is a good bet or not. They just tell you what the bookmaker is offering. What matters is whether that price is better than the true probability. So for example, let's say a team has a true chance of winning of around 90%. The bookmaker offers odds of 1.20, which implies around 83%. That's value. Even though the odds are short, you are being paid more than you should be for that outcome. And over time, that's how you make money. The problem is, most bettors don't approach short odds like this. They see short odds as safe bets. They think they're close to guaranteed, so they stake more money, they get comfortable, and then when one of those bets loses, it wipes out multiple previous wins. And that's where the emotional side kicks in. They start chasing, trying to recover, and things spiral from there. So the issue isn't short odds themselves, it's how people think about them. It's not about whether the odds are short or long, it's about whether the price is right. Now this next myth links directly to that, and it's something a lot of bettors believe without even realizing it. That value only exists in underdogs. There's this idea that if you want to beat the bookmakers, you have to be backing outsiders. Big prices, big returns. That's where people think the edge is, and I get why it's appealing. Landing a 5.00 or 6.00 winner feels great, but the same rule still applies. A bet only has value if the odds are greater than the true probability. So let's say an underdog is priced at 5.00. That implies around a 20% chance, but their actual chance of winning is closer to 15%. That's not value. Even though the odds are big, even though the payout looks attractive, it's still a bad bet. And over time, bets like that will drain your bankroll. This is where it becomes dangerous, because with bigger odds comes bigger variance. You're going to have longer losing runs, you're going to need a bigger bankroll to sustain it. And emotionally, it's much harder to stay disciplined when you're losing multiple bets in a row. So blindly backing underdogs isn't a strategy, it's just another version of guessing. And it leads to the same outcome as blindly backing favorites. By the way, if you like videos like this and want to see more on this subject, remember to click the like button. It tells YouTube to send you more of this kind of content. And while you are there, you should hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss a system or strategy video. Now the next myth is one that looks sensible on the surface, but causes a lot of damage over time. And that's the idea that if something wins often, it must be profitable. This is where a lot of bettors get pulled into safe systems or high win rate strategies. They see something that wins 70 or 80% of the time and assume it must be a good approach, but win rate on its own means nothing, because profitability depends on the relationship between the win rate and the odds. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you place 10 bets, you win 7 of them at odds of 1.40. That gives you a profit of 2.8 units, but then you lose 3 bets. That's a loss of 3 units. So even though you've won 70% of your bets, you're still down overall. This is something I learned the hard way. I used to focus heavily on finding bets that felt safe and won regularly. But every time I ignored the price and just chased consistency, it would eventually catch up with me. One loss would undo a whole run and I'd be back to square one. And this is why so many bettors get stuck. They focus on how often they win, instead of how much they win when they're right and how much they lose when they're wrong. So the key takeaway here is simple. Win rate means nothing without price. Now this next one is a big one, and it ties everything together. Out of curiosity actually, how often do you find yourself looking at a bet and thinking, that price looks too good to be true? Because this final myth is exactly where that thinking comes from. And that is, I've found a great bet. The bookmaker must have missed something. This is one of the biggest traps in football betting because it plays directly into confidence and ego. You look at a price, it feels generous, it seems obvious, and you think you've spotted something the market hasn't. But very few people stop and ask the most important question. Why is this price being offered? Bookmakers are not guessing. They're using advanced models, huge amounts of data, and constantly adjusting prices based on market activity. So when you see a price that looks too good, there's usually a reason for it. Let's say a team is priced at 5.5. They've looked good recently. Maybe you watched their last match and you think they should be shorter, so you back them. But what you haven't considered is everything that's already built into that price. Injuries, underlying performance data, expected goals, tactical matchups, market sentiment, all of that is already reflected. So what feels like value often isn't. It's just a lack of information. And this is where bettors lose money consistently because they think they have an edge when they don't. If you think you found an obvious edge, you need to ask why the market hasn't corrected it. Because real edges are not obvious. They're small, they're data-driven, and they're difficult to spot without proper tools. And like I said earlier, guys, this is exactly where something like Statto becomes a serious advantage. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out which bets might have value, the app uses artificial intelligence to scan football matches worldwide, analyze the data, and present structured insights instantly. You can do this for any market such as match odds, over 2.5 goals, BTTS, first half goals, and many more. It doesn't guarantee winners, nothing does, but it gives you a much more efficient and professional way to approach betting without relying on guesswork or gut feeling. If you want to start using that, you can click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen. So when you step back and look at all 5 of these myths, they all point to the same thing: misunderstanding value. If you focus on outcomes instead of decisions, if you chase win rates instead of price, if you rely on instinct instead of data, you will lose over time. But if you start thinking in terms of probability, price, and long-term outcomes, that's when things begin to change. If you found this useful, remember to hit the like button. It tells YouTube to show you more of this kind of content. You should also hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. This will get you notified as soon as our prediction videos go live, so you never miss them. And by the way, there's another video on the screen right now that goes deeper into this topic, so go and check that out next. I'll see you over there.